thought process that went into building these applications, Facebook being the first of them, to really understand it. That thought process was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. And that means that we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. And that's going to get you to contribute more content, and that's going to get you, more likes and comments. I mean, it's a social validation feedback loop that it's like it's exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with, because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. And I think that the inventors, creators, and it's me, it's Mark, it's the Kevin Systerman, Instagram, it's all of these people, understood this consciously, and we did it anyway.
Providing companies with the funding to bring those technologies to market. In reality, however, what In-Q-Tel represents is a dangerous blurring of the lines between the public and private sectors in a way that makes it difficult to tell where the American intelligence community ends and the IT sector begins. In-Q-Tel has generated a number of headlines since its inception based on what can only be described as the creepiness factor of its investments in overtly Orwellian technologies. In 2004, KM World published an interview with Greg Peeps, then In-Q-Tel's Senior Director of Federal and Intelligence Community Strategy, about some of their investments. Peeps was especially proud of the CIA's investment in Ingzite, a company that offered software for data mining unstructured data sources like blogs and websites with analytical processing. In 2006, it was revealed that AT&T had provided NSA eavesdroppers full access to its customers' internet traffic, and that the American intelligence community was illegally scooping up reams of internet data wholesale. The DARPA document that details the Pentagon's plans for influencing opinions in the social media space is called Social Media in Strategic Communication. DARPA's goal, according to their own website, is to develop tools to help identify misinformation or deception campaigns and
I think if anyone just looks at the logic of who owns this and why, and these databases that are so important to the government to be able to cross-reference, if they're developing, or they've developed already, the health software with this company, and they are crossing that with your social component, it won't be long before, just like in China, you don't get a job, because the employer now can look at your health, your things that you like. Maybe you don't get along with them because you're a liberal progressive, or worse, feminist. So, or because I don't like feminists, as you can tell, but or maybe you're a conservative that is a patriot. Oh my gosh, you might not get along with everybody at that company, and so all they have to do is look at this and your trust score with the government, and you're out of a job. There's a reason they're putting in, 20 million cameras in China up until the year, for the next 2 years, 2020, is because they want to make sure and up the credibility of their social score, their trust score, if you will, so that it can absolutely hit you in the pocketbook. It can actually take away your ability to work. And what's more scary to the American people than that? And we are moving in that direction. We're just not doing it overtly. In China, of course, they know the government's doing it. Here, it's a facade. It's the government doing it, but they're just doing it through the mediums in which we've all joined, which they made it very easy to join, and obviously very visual and very alluring. And also, there's a reason that Google kicked Yahoo's butt. There's a reason that Google came to the forefront very quickly. And I can't believe people still believe that it's these two guys. They always want to make it the cute little entrepreneur story, it's two guys just started this, or Zuckerberg just started this, and nothing could be farther from the truth if you start to look at all their projects that they've done with the CIA. So,
is there anything we can do? I mean, you've gotten into this quite heavily. For example, let's just say if you decide not to even go on Facebook or have a presence on Facebook or Twitter or any of the social networking sites, will that save you or save us, or what happens?
I don't know.
Okay.
All I do know is that we are very industrious people. We think ahead, and we have gotten ourselves out of situations before. Look at the Underground Railroad. Look at the types of things that we've developed when we couldn't do what we wanted to do, and the American people sort of said, "Okay, this is what we'll do. We'll do something that we understand, and we will develop this." We're going to have to start developing something, because I always feel like we are on the defense. We've got to be a little bit more on the offense in figuring out what we're going to do when X is pulled and B is pulled and A is pulled, because it's coming. We know that. So what are we going to do? Can conservatives start their own channel? Can, maybe we don't have to interact with every liberal on Facebook or Twitter. And so maybe conservatives start something else or do something else so that we have a fail-safe, because we know it's coming down the pike. Of course, they got to silence these voices, because this is the only medium that is getting through to people. It's funny. I had a caller call in. He's kind of a CNN junkie. I mean, everything the CNN says, he believes. And he said, Trump is a dictator, and he's taken away our First Amendment because he called the media the enemy of the people. And I went, but the media is the enemy of the people. They've been controlled for eons. Everything you're hearing out of their mouths is half truths or total, a total lie. And he goes, but he called them the enemy of the people, the press. And I said, yes, he's calling it out. He didn't.
By the CIA, who are contributing to a major circulation American journal.
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
This parallel government, rogue government, shadow
doesn't really have any wires. It doesn't have, no one owns it. No one controls it. But now we all get to go to it for free. I feel liberated. Don't you feel liberated?
These mythologies have been created around every piece of this story from the
mythologies.
beginning. Yes.
These are modern digital mythologies that are such nonsense that if you look into them, it will just make you want to vomit, because they aren't even creative with these mythologies. They couldn't have picked a worse student at Harvard to say created the social network invention of our time. Dude Zuckerberg was a failure. He was sued by everyone involved in it and has lost most of those cases. And yet he is one of the richest men in the world and wants to run for president. I always make the joke, I've never seen him at work. When did this man who basically changed our world, he doesn't even work anymore. He says he doesn't write code. He's not interested in it.
That's another mythology. I mean, that mythology was created by the social networking movie and a book called The Facebook Effect. So it was pretty easy for them to actually create this mythology. And we were beginning to look at that. What are they doing with our technology? And then this movie came out, and it was a big lie. And then this book came out, and it was a big lie. And all those guys made a lot of money, and they just carried it right down through the IPO.
Bezos, Thiel, Zuckerberg, and all the other young, beautiful guys who put on their Nikes and go for a run and only wear T-shirts and have bad attitudes, they are the mythology. And you, look at you. You're just a brilliant old engineer who worked with people, gathered $20 million together, 145,000 hours invested.
Right.
Did I mention $20 million invested? Did I mention all your shareholders? Did I mention all the patents you had before you had afterwards? Did I mention your copyrights? Did I mention Zuckerberg has nothing? He says he did it in a week during finals with a keg of beer. Okay, that is the stupidest mythology ever. Here's the truth. You're sitting in front of us. I don't know how you don't just explode as you look at the deprecation of what you thought was going to free people, but in fact has bound people to psyops from the CIA, NSA, counterintelligence, FBI, straight from the White House, from the U.S. Digital Service, on down the line. I would go out of my mind if I was you. Seriously.
Well, let's put it this way. I've decided that I'm going to take it one day at a time, and that I'm a Christian, and I believe that God puts us in circumstances in our life for a reason. And I concluded after we took the case to the Supreme Court and they wouldn't hear it, that there was something extremely wrong with our country, and maybe that was what I was supposed to take a look at, is what was going wrong. And so that's in fact what we have been doing as a shareholder group ever since, is peeling away the layers of this onion. And as we began to peel it away, I mean, I didn't know anything about the deep state back then. But as we peeled away this onion and we got closer and closer to these guys, it's the same people that are in the news now every day. And they have a heinous strategy and design for America, for our Constitution. They don't like the Constitution. They want a crony capitalist world government that they control, that they're on top of. And unfortunately, I happen to have had the invention that they wanted to pull all this together electronically. And so I don't know where this is going, but I think that truth has a way of finding its home in honest people.
Campaign, because the guys on the left say, well, the Nazis just used the name socialist. It was kind of a ruse. They were just trying to get the working class vote. So I'm like, let's look at their platform. This is what they actually campaigned on. And you look at it: state control of banks, state control of healthcare, state control of energy, state control of education, state control of religious liberty, and down the list you go, and you realize, wait a minute, Trump doesn't agree with any of that. That's not right of center. In fact, if you spell it out, you're going to find Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren checking some boxes on this list. So I think the advantage of a movie like this is that you're able to put it in front of the audience, let the audience figure it out. And then, of course, we have these crushing scenes where the Nazis and the Italian fascists are actually learning lessons from and using the blueprints of the Democratic Party and American progressives to put in their eugenic schemes, their sterilization schemes. I mean, you've got guys on Margaret Sanger's board getting congratulatory letters from Hitler, and far from being dismayed, they run to each other's homes to show each other their letters from Hitler. Look, Hitler calls my book his Bible. And the other guy goes, wait a minute, let me produce my letter from Hitler. Now, all of this is really going on, and yet you're not going to find it in the Planned Parenthood catalog. You're not going to find it in the history books or even on Wikipedia. This, I think, the movie kind of blows the lid on the cover-up of progressive historiography. I think this is really what the progressive intellectuals are most scared about, is blowing the cover on the very beautiful arrangement in which they've been able to rig the narrative and put a whole lot of lethal and toxic facts under the rug.